welcome to CFB Broadcast, coming to you live from She Shed Radio Studios, where we will be reviewing the Week 2 in college football, and we will be previewing the games in Week 3. And I'm here with my co-host JB, and this is LA. Let's get started looking at the big games of Week 2, and I don't think that there would be any doubt, any questions to what the big game of Week 1 was.
Texas LSU.
Texas and LSU. It was a great college football game. It was a game where both quarterbacks played outstanding. It was one of those games where you hate to say that one team had to lose, but I was impressed with LSU, and I was. To be quite frank, I was glad that they beat Texas after how Texas acted after the Sugar Bowl victory over Georgia. That was a great college football game. By far the best college football game of the year, as LSU won a thriller, 45-38 at Texas.
Yeah.
So what's your first impressions, JB? You at the start of the year, you said that LSU every year. They're ranked high, and we hear about this offense, and but they showed me a lot yesterday. And Burrows, he proved to me that he is a very good quarterback, and they could win the whole thing. They are a good football team.
Well, I wouldn't go that far as they could win the whole thing, but I will say I was wrong about LSU this year. It looks to me like they have changed their offense, and they really looked good. They ran Joe Burrows, like you said, is a tough as nails quarterback. He had pressure. He had pressure in his face a lot last night.
He did.
He delivered, and you got to say he's a tough kid. I said he was tough last year. I thought he was tough when they played Alabama. Alabama beat him up, and he kept coming back.
He did.
So I'm going to give LSU props. They look like they've turned the corner, but I will say I don't think Texas's defense is that good.
They're a Big 12 defense. There's no doubt about that. There's no denying that. Teams put up big numbers in that conference, but we talked about this last week. Will LSU pass the ball when the chips are on the line?
They did.
And last night it was 3rd and 17, and if they give that ball back to Texas was marching up and down that field the second half. They would have scored, and LSU would have lost that game, but they let that quarterback. Joe Burrows made a play on 3rd and 17 late in the fourth quarter with about 2 minutes and change left, and that was the difference in the game.
It was. I believe LSU.
I am a believer in LSU, and
they're going to be. They're dangerous.
They're a good
SEC.
football team, and we've been told this before, but last night they proved it on the biggest stage that
absolutely
that they are for real. And that defense, that secondary is solid, and they've got they pretty much.
I'm not going to crown them national champions just yet. Because when they come, when they do come to the big game now, I assume Alabama and LSU will be both undefeated. That's my assumption. It's going to be another gigantic game.
Huge game.
Can the coaching? This is where it's going to come into coaching. Who can coach? Can he not coach tight against Alabama?
Yeah. Well, they've got their big game behind them, and they're going to be heavily favored from here on till Alabama.
Well, they look good.
They did look good.
I'm giving them all
the credit. They look real good.
They did. They proved me wrong. I didn't think they would change their offense, and they have, and they looked really good.
And it's the best win. No one has a more impressive win in college football right now. At this time, that was a good win by LSU. So
and they were rewarded also in the polls.
They were.
We'll talk about that later, I'm sure.
Another game that kind of maybe flew under the radar, USC 45, Stanford 20. you may say, okay, what's the big deal about that? Well, USC is a big name in college football, and they had a true freshman. You know, the big deal was both quarterbacks were going to be first-time starters in that football game, and USC went out and just drilled Stanford 45-20. They had a true freshman quarterback, Kendon Slovis. He passed for 377 yards, and I would say that I'll say what you want to about the Pac-12, but USC carries a lot of weight, and they carry a lot of cachet.
Yeah.
And if they're good, that's good for college football.
Yeah, maybe they're. I didn't really.
It was a late game.
I didn't get really watch a lot of the game because it was late.
The quarterback was impressive. He looked very good.
I saw some clips of him playing, and I was not surprised, but I was. I guess I was surprised that he did as well, because I thought with JT Daniels going down, I really thought probably that was the end of the road for USC.
I did too, and a lot of heat on Helton.
Yeah.
And you know, there's a lot of rumors out there, but that was a very big win for Clay Helton and the USC Trojans. Hey, and we're going to find out this week if they can sustain that playing
momentum
to that level.
Yeah.
So we'll see. That was impressive. Also impressive somewhat was the Clemson 24-10 win over Texas A&M. I know I said don't be surprised if Texas A&M has a chance to win that game. They didn't. They were dominated. But man, they played hard.
They did. But I don't see Texas
A&M. They didn't
get
ran out of the stadium.
No, but it was about like what I thought it would be like. I mean, I don't think Texas A&M is quite ready for that level yet. I mean, you know, Jimbo's a good coach.
I would agree with that.
I think they're maybe a year or two away from being able to, especially, you know, playing at Clemson. It was a big moment. It was a big stage. You know, I mean, they didn't look horrible. But I don't think. But I don't think they don't have enough offense. They don't have enough offense right now to be able to. And with Clemson having they have a good defense.
They do.
So,
and
you know, I mean, it wasn't bad.
Maybe they're limited with Mond at quarterback. I mean,
maybe so. Maybe Jimbo has to get his.
You know, Sumlin ran a bunch of good quarterbacks out from over there.
Yeah, he had the Heisman Trophy winner.
He did.
And run him off.
Ran several of them off. Several good quarterbacks off. So, but you know, I would say 24-10 victory. A&M did cover the spread.
They did.
But I would say
a late cover.
Yeah, a late cover, but nonetheless, they don't ask you how. They just ask you what was the score.
Right. But that's basically the season for Clemson. They're going to cakewalk. They're walking to the college football playoff.
Oh, they don't play anybody, and that's obvious this week But we'll get in that in a minute. But I think the bigger story here is Clemson's inability to really put up big numbers. I mean, this is the second week that Trevor Lawrence
hasn't really.
You know, he's not
average quarterback.
They were ready to anoint him the Heisman Trophy winner and things like this, and he has not. I mean, they're solid. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, they're.
And A&M shut down the running back.
They did, but you know, I mean, good teams, great teams. You know, they find a way to win.
Clemson's one of the best, if not the best team. They're the defending national champion, and they should get all this theirs. But
you're right.
2 weeks now that they've not really hit on full cylinders.
That's true. I mean, I haven't been. Trevor Lawrence hasn't looked that great to me this year.
No, I would agree. So, and we'll see how that plays out. Game number 4 of 5 of what I thought was the biggest games of the week. Michigan needing double overtime to beat Army.
It's the fans were booing at halftime. I saw when the Michigan left the field, the boo birds were out. I mean, What is Harbaugh going to do if he does not have a good season? This is his year. If he does not win this year, and you know who I'm talking about, he has to
He's
beat
gotta
Ohio State.
State. And we'll talk about this a little bit later on, but to me,
to
Ohio
go-
State looks good.
Maybe.
And hey, I'm willing to give them a mulligan. Oklahoma last year needed. Don't get me wrong, Army is a good football team, and if you can run their offense that they run,
They can shorten the game.
they
on
can
you.
shorten the game. And they're not a great football team, but they're a good football team. And if you're not ready to play, and you don't see that type of offense every week, I'm willing to give Michigan a pass on this game. They won the game. At the end of the day, that's what matters.
Yeah, but how long has Harbaugh been there?
I agree. This is
you shouldn't.
this is his year.
You shouldn't get a mulligan against Army when you've been there 5 years.
but
How long has he been there? 5 years?
Yeah, 4. This is his 4th year, I believe.
Come on.
But
I'm not.
Army's a good football team. They're not a great football team, but they won 10 games last year.
Yeah, okay.
They carried Oklahoma to the wire, which
Well, they
to
shortened it.
me
Yeah, you're right.
makes this game being so close so surprising. Michigan knew that this was a good football team. Michigan knew that they carried Oklahoma to the wire last year, and they still, they were lucky to win that game. So we will see what happens, and I think I'm willing to give Michigan a break on that first game or that close game against Army, and we will see.
He better get it done this year is all I can say.
Yeah,
Because the fans are growing very weary.
Yeah, Michigan's not used to playing second fiddle to Ohio State this many years. So,
No.
and we'll talk about that a little bit later on. The last big game, what I would call is our top 5, is Colorado and Nebraska. We heard a lot of chirping from Nebraska that Frost was going to, this was his second year, and they were ranked after a 4-8 season last year, and to be and they were up in this game 17-0.
Yeah.
17-0, and I had basically chalked this up as a win for them, and Colorado came back and basically beat them. A lot of people compared it the same way as how Cordell Stewart beat Michigan
Yeah.
in that game when they tied the game, sent it to overtime, and they found a way to win. And I believe Frost is a good coach.
Yeah, but it's not. It's when you're playing, when you're beating people, when you're coaching UCF and you're beating people, it's different than week in, week out having to play in the Big 12 or Big 10. Nebraska's in the Big 10, right?
Nebraska's Big 10. That's a big win for the Pac-12.
So,
they needed that win big time.
So it's a different league. I mean,
that was a big win for the.
But he knows how to do it. He
Pac-12.
played at Nebraska. So
He did.
He knows. He knows what
on a
comes with
national
it.
championship team.
Yeah.
And
But it's not as easy as winning at UCF.
No, and I think he will be. Colorado won that game 34-31. That was basically, for me, the top games of the week in a week 2. And, we found out a lot about some teams then. And if you look a little bit deeper in the Power 5 conferences, Maryland from the Big 10, they just destroyed Syracuse. That game was close to a pick'em. Maryland went out and blew the doors off Syracuse.
Loxley had it rolling.
Loxley is looking like he could be the Big 10 Coach of the Year. He's had 2 wins where he's put up a lot of points. And Maryland defeated Syracuse 63-21. And that hurts the ACC.
Because Syracuse was...
they were the
supposed to
only
be.
other team that was ranked in the ACC.
Right. They were supposed to be the big challenge, I guess, also to Clemson, but...
No.
Syracuse. Yeah.
I know that they had built them up to that, but
Not
Maryland just did anything that they wanted to.
Maryland looked good to me.
Maryland looked good. If you look at the other games in the Big Ten, Iowa, they beat Rutgers 30-0. I mean, Rutgers is what Rutgers is, but we'll find out a little bit more about Iowa. But Iowa's looked pretty good the first 2 weeks. Purdue had a win over a SEC team, if you could count it, Vanderbilt.
Looks like Vanderbilt's back to being Vanderbilt.
Yeah.
They have a couple of good years, but they're just, it is what it is. Vanderbilt is just Vanderbilt.
Exactly. But if you look at the Big Ten, the two teams that I want to talk about, the first one is the Ohio State Buckeyes. And this game, a lot of people, and I thought this game would be a close game. They were playing a Cincinnati team that won 10 or 11 games last year, a Cincinnati team that had just pretty much dominated UCLA last week. The game was at Ohio State, but the line was only 16 or so. And Ohio State just went out there and they totally dominated that game from start to finish.
Well, Justin Fields looked really good.
He does.
I think he made a good decision leaving
I do too.
Georgia, where he was in Georgia's offense. My opinion is he was asked to do things. He didn't really get to play that much, but when he was in there, he was asked to do things that he don't normally do. Now he's at Ohio State doing what he can do and what he likes to do.
Yeah.
And he looked really good.
He did. And
Ohio State looked good.
Ohio State has looked phenomenal. And we will see if that continues. But for me, Ohio State has looked impressive.
Of course, they haven't really played anybody.
No, they have. But Cincinnati's a good football team.
Well, Cincinnati, they are.
I mean, they're not a bad football team.
Because they beat UCLA, didn't they?
They did. They did. I mean, but what's that nowadays?
Well, it's a good question.
But another team that's kind of flying under the radar that I want to talk about is the Wisconsin Badgers. Wisconsin.
They haven't relinquished a point.
They have played 2 games. They have not given up 1 point all year. I don't care who you play, and these are group of 5 teams. Central Michigan, they beat 61-0. In South Florida, Charlie Strong team, they beat 49-0. So they've pitched 2 shutouts, and they're 1-10-0. Last year they only won 8 games, and they are a sneaky good team. And that I don't care who you play. You play 2 games and you shut 2 opponents out. You've done something impressive. Central Michigan, they've got athletes too.
Yeah.
And we'll see.
I guess we'll see. I don't know.
I mean,
not giving up any points in 2 games, that's pretty good.
That's pretty good, and we'll see how that goes.
But I didn't watch the game, so I don't know. Did they put their subs in? Did they get to the 3rd and 4th team, or did they?
You're still shutting them out. That's saying a lot. 2 games in a row. That's pretty good. Let's talk about the ACC. 2 games here I want to talk about. Florida State and Louisiana Monroe. Florida State wins the game 45-44 in overtime. And if Taggart had lost that game, I really question if he would have even been the coach Sunday morning.
It's like we said last week. It's
bad,
a dumpster fire.
Man, it is bad.
I don't know if they know what's going on. I don't know if they know what the problem is. I saw an article. It's well out there that they said maybe dehydration was the reason for last week's issue. So I don't know what the reason for this week's issue would be, because if it was dehydration last week, surely they would have hydrated for this week's game. I don't know. It's not good. It's.
And we were talking when this game was going on, and when Louisiana Monroe scored and how they lost the game. if you're a team like Louisiana Monroe,
What have you got to lose?
what do you have to lose?
Go for
If-
2.
Why would you not go for 2? He ran. I do not want to lose that game on my field goal kicker.
Mm-mm.
I'm sorry to all the field goal kickers out there, but Louisiana Monroe had scored, and then basically the kicker missed the kick, and they lost the game. If I had scored, no one would have blamed the coach. Hey, he went for 2
To try to win the
to
game.
try to win the game.
He wasn't
because
supposed to win
He
anyway.
wasn't supposed to win the game. They've got twice as much talent as you've got. They're recruiting at a different level than what you recruit at. You basically get a chance to win that game on one play. And he chose to, and I don't blame the kicker. I mean, that is what it is. But I would have went for 2 there, and had he not made it, I don't think anybody would have blamed him. But
No, but
that's what happens. Florida State gets the win in overtime over Louisiana Monroe.
I mean, a win is a
Is
win.
a win is a
but
win,
they cannot
that
feel good about
is-
that win.
They are and if you look at this week, they're a 7.5 point underdog to Virginia. I
Yeah.
do not see that situation getting better for Taggart at Florida State. It probably just postponed the inevitable to the end of the season, but I do not see that getting better. Did you see some of the plays they were running? They had guys
Lined up
backwards.
backwards.
It
But now, was that on purpose?
unbelievable. Yes,
Okay,
yes,
yeah.
and
I saw the still shot on social media, but I wasn't sure.
That's
I said
awful.
obviously they did it on purpose.
Well,
I don't know what the purpose of it was, but it was surely the guy didn't line up like
Yeah.
that
Yeah, it was
accidentally.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
Another game, another big win for Mac Brown as Mac Brown beats Miami 28-25. That's good, I guess, to see Mac Brown with a big win. They were way ahead. They let Miami come back, and then they won the game in the end. Manny Diaz now finds himself 0-2.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I think Mac's a good coach. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't particularly care
Yeah.
for it, but I mean,
We'll
he's
see.
had success. So I mean, and obviously, I mean, the team is playing for him. So
yeah.
they've won 2 games, and what can you say?
yeah,
Nobody thought they would be good.
They
so.
won. They won 2 or 3 games last year, and they've already got 2 games. They're 2-0 this year, so I'm sure they're happy on Chapel Hill. So, moving from the ACC to the Big 12, we've already talked about Texas, Oklahoma with a huge win over what was expected to be South Dakota,
Yeah.
as Oklahoma won 70-14. Jalen Hurts looks like he's putting up big numbers. It looks like it's going to come
going
down
to,
between Texas and Oklahoma. Looks like they're going to play twice. And whoever wins the second game, it looks like that's who's going to go
To the playoff,
maybe to
yeah.
the playoff. If, we'll see how things pan out. But it looks like those 2 teams are on a collision course to play twice. Once in October and once in December for the right to go to the playoffs. The Pac-12, we beat up on them week in and week out. They've had some ugly losses after going 8-4 in week 1, but they had some good wins. We talked about the Colorado win earlier.
USC.
USC wins, but then the 2 teams that can't seem to get out of their own way, Washington. A lot of them picked them to win the conference,
Yeah,
they lose at home to California.
Yeah. I mean,
And-
Washington looked good last week with Jacob Eason, the
Yeah.
transfer from Georgia, but they didn't get it done this week.
They didn't, and I realized that game did not kick off to after midnight Central, or it kicked off, but I think they only played like five minutes, and then it was delayed, and I don't think it finished till like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning on the East Coast. So it was whatever it was. I don't care when you play.
Right.
You know, if Washington was as good as what they said, they shouldn't have lost. So it looks like, hey, but as long as they have USC winning, they're good.
Oh yeah.
You know, but we will see. The other one, USC loses again. They lost to San Diego State.
UCLA, yeah.
UCLA's 0-2 now. I never would have thought in the year 2 that Chip Kelly would be 0-2 after a dismal year that he had the first year. It was awful.
Yeah,
and
I don't know what's. I mean, that's
and it's
strange.
not going to get any better this week as they play Oklahoma comes to town, and Oklahoma can probably name the score on them.
They probably can.
They're a
but,
21-point favorite.
Yeah.
Over at UCLA.
I don't know what's going on there. You know, Chip Kelly, he was wasn't it Brian Kelly? Was it Brian or Chip?
Chip Kelly.
Yeah. You know, had a lot of success at Oregon, and when he went to the pros and came back and got hired at UCLA, I thought that he would have UCLA back in contention in the Pac-12, but I mean, obviously it's something. Maybe he's not getting the type of athletes he needs right now. But this is his second year,
He doesn't
right?
have a quarterback.
This is his second year,
It's his second year. He doesn't have a quarterback, but you know, if it keeps going like it's going, I don't know if he'll get year 3. Moving on to the last hour, probably the conference that we know the most about, the SEC. Missouri had a big win, 38-7 over West Virginia. When you start at the end of the year, start comparing wins, conferences versus the Power 5, that would be a big win. Ole Miss, for the time being, they had a win over Arkansas, and they are at the top of the conference rankings, so we'll see how long that lasts. But that was a good win for Ole Miss. They win the game for 31-17 over Arkansas. Alabama looked impressive. Tua Tagovailoa, he had a big game, threw for over 200 yards. One of the passes was a backwards pass that he threw.
As a run.
They counted it as a run, but you know, I thought it was close enough. He could have went either way, but Alabama just looked solid. They look solid. Solid win by Alabama.
You should look solid against New Mexico State.
Yeah.
But, you know, I have issues. I'm concerned with the offensive line. Let me say, I think we have issues with tight end. That's what I think. I think that we don't have the blocking tight ends that we've had. You see they're using multiple tight ends in the game. You know, you're missing Irv Smith bad right now. From what just from my observation, which I'm no expert, to me, our tight ends are one of the reasons why we're not being able to run the ball as effectively as normal. That's the issue. We still can't run the ball.
Yeah.
I mean, that's concerning to me. But when you have 4 NFL wide receivers and an NFL quarterback, I mean, it's hard to defend what we run, but you still have to be able to run the football. And the offensive line, at this point in time, does not look like it's able to establish an identity. And I think a lot of it, just my opinion, I think a lot of it has to do with our tight end situation.
Yeah. Maybe so. And we'll find out a little bit more about Alabama this week as they go on the road for the first time. Well, true road game,
yeah.
To South Carolina. Last time they were there, they lost. Garcia had the game of his life.
That was the game.
Last team we talk about in the SEC, the Tennessee Vols.
Like we said last week, we said could it get any worse from losing to Georgia State? Well, it got worse.
It got worse.
You had the game won.
Had it won.
All you had to do was keep from a 70-yard play from happening, and you won the game. And they didn't. I mean, they let the guy get open.
Yeah.
Man. You know, I mean, it was.
Had the game won, let the guy get open, run down the field, tie the game up with a field goal, then lose it in overtime. And You know, they're talking like 1-7 right now for Tennessee, a team that many people had picked as a sleeper for the SEC East. Well, that's not going to happen.
Well, they're sleeping right now because
And-
they're terrible.
Oh, it's bad. So, and it's not going with when they play Alabama, Georgia.
they've got what?
They've got
They got
LSU,
UT Chattanooga. That's
yeah,
their,
they've got this week.
and then it's
they hit the
bad.
gauntlet.
Yeah.
Florida, Georgia, Alabama. So,
But it's kind of like Tennessee to slip up and beat one of those teams somehow.
well, man, they seem so far from that. We'll just see.
But it's a dumpster fire.
It's bad. It's bad at Tennessee. The AP top 10, that's what we will kind of go by until they start getting the playoff rankings out. Not many changes. You have
Clemson.
LSU went up to number 4.
They jumped Oklahoma.
Yeah,
Yeah.
in the AP poll. Ohio State stayed at 6. And for me, Ohio State looks impressive.
They do.
Ohio State looks really impressive, as does Oklahoma at 5. Auburn moved up to 8, but I think Auburn's still trying to find who they are. You know, they're winning. Their defense is phenomenal. And
I think they have running. I mean, they have one running back that I've seen, and
yeah.
he can't hold on to the ball.
Yeah,
so
he fumbled 3 times yesterday. So,
but I mean, I did not get to watch the whole game, but you know, like you said,
I watched a good bit of it.
we were
but-
talking. We were talking while the game was on, and what did you think of Bo Nix in the second game?
Well, you know, I didn't see any improvement.
Yeah, I didn't watch the much.
And
of the
I know
game,
at the end of the game they put the other quarterback in, Gatewood, and let him run a little bit, but he didn't do anything.
So basically,
So I
Auburn
think
has offensive
Auburn-
problems.
I think, you know, and their schedule is tough. And
Yeah.
I just don't know if the fan base is going to tolerate.
Well, they got high expectations.
They
now
do have,
off of
and
the
it's
win
tough
over
without
Oregon.
Yeah, and that looked better now that Oregon really went out and played good yesterday.
But they have the expectations now.
They have expectations, but I don't know. You know, they're going to have a handful with LSU, Georgia, Alabama, A&M, Florida. That's 5 games they're going to have their hands full. They're going to be underdogs in.
Yeah.
So if they can go 2-3 in that's going to be good. And if they go worse than that, I wonder if that's going to be good enough for Malzahn. So we'll see.
Well, it should be. I mean, they're paying him a fortune, so
They
it's going
are.
to take a lot to get rid of him.
They are. So, Florida and Michigan, they round out the top 10. So that's basically week 2. And then, unfortunately, for week 3, there's not a whole lot of big-time matchups.
Bad games. There's nothing to get excited about.
Nothing really to get excited about.
I'm tired of these non-exciting games.
I am too, and you know, and I was thinking about that watching the Alabama-New Mexico State game yesterday. And Coach Saban, he addressed it like, "Hey, we're playing the best team." You know, and I had never really thought about it like that before.
They're playing teams.
We're playing the best teams that we can play. That nobody wants to play them. You know, from my side, I wish the SEC would go to 9 conference games. And I wish the other 3 games would be from the other Power 5 conferences.
I do too.
And I
think
eventually it will,
maybe.
because I
But
think
these other
that
small
because
schools, you know, they come to get whipped to get their check, which is understandable.
Well, I understand
but you know, I mean,
that,
it's
but-
not. But for fans, and people
but
can say what they
people
want
will
to.
not
Who wants to sit in the October in the September 100-degree weather to watch Alabama
was hot.
beat New Mexico State 62-10 or whatever it was? I mean,
I agree.
that game is not exciting.
I agree.
And then, you know, Coach Saban, he went on his rant about, you know, if you want to be the best, you know, what
I
will you do to
understand
be
that.
the best? And I understand it too, but I mean, I don't know. I don't get excited about those kind of games.
You know, I don't either. But I had never really thought about that we're playing the best teams that we can play, that nobody will play them. And I'm sure Alabama's looking for somebody to come to their place. You know what I mean? Because there's a budget that you have to meet.
Well, I mean, if it's a good team, have a home and a workout to do with a home and home.
I agree, but I don't think you could do that. I don't think you could play. I think that budget is based on 8 home games a year.
Okay.
So, you know.
I mean, they need to do something.
I agree.
I mean, because this is basically a practice game. You know, it's a practice game in the hot sun, and I mean,
it was hot.
So it's just hard to get excited about playing New Mexico State.
Yeah, I agree. Well, that moves us to week 3. The games that we talked about, that there's not really a ranked matchup. Getting ready for the fall. Week 4 is loaded.
Yeah.
But week 3, we don't have a whole lot. North Carolina at Wake Forest, that's on Thursday night. Wake Forest, a 3.5-point favorite. I would just say that I think North Carolina's on borrowed time. I like Wake Forest in that game big time. Ohio State -14 at Indiana. I'm a little surprised that line is that low.
Yeah, I mean, is Indiana that good?
I mean, I don't know. Ohio State has looked solid to me. I don't get it why that is. Mississippi State moving to the SEC. Mississippi State 7.5-point favorite over Kansas State. Alabama goes on the road 24. It came out at 21.
Went to 24.
24-point favorite for Alabama over South Carolina. USC, we talked about them. They moved up the most in the polls this week as they went from just totally off the radar to ranked 24th. They're a 3.5-point favorite at BYU. That should be an interesting game. To show you how bad week 3 is, College Game Day is at the Iowa State and Iowa game, where Iowa State is a 1.5-point favorite.
Well, that's a good game.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it'll be a good game.
Yeah, we'll see. And Arkansas is a 12-point favorite over Colorado State. I don't see how they're 12-point favorite over anybody, to be honest with you. They look. I watched a good bit of that Ole Miss game.
I mean, Arkansas does have SEC talent, and Colorado State's not that good.
Maybe they'll destroy them. Yeah. And we'll just see. In 3 games that looked like they would be good games to start the year, Florida, 11-point favorite at Kentucky. Remember, Kentucky snapped the winning streak of Florida last year. So can Kentucky get to 2 in a row over Florida?
No.
Or not? Mm-hmm. I think that game will be closer than what people think. I think we'll see. When you started the year, the Clemson and Syracuse game, that looked like that would be the game that Clemson would be tested in.
Nope.
After Syracuse just got beat by about 40 points, they get the chance of the defending national champions coming home to play them. So Clemson is a 24-point favorite at Syracuse. And I look for Trevor Lawrence to unload one game, and it might be this weekend.
Maybe so.
He's going to put up some big numbers. Chip Kelly, we talked about him.
Yep.
It doesn't get any easier. He's a 20-point underdog at home against Oklahoma, and I look for Jalen Hurts to
pad his stats.
Yeah,
I think he will, too.
I think he will. I think I would say that to me, the SEC is going to be a dogfight.
Oh, yeah.
Alabama, Georgia, and now I think you can throw LSU in there. If Auburn, I think Auburn may be a year away. We'll see. But I think Alabama, Georgia, and LSU are clearly head and shoulders above everybody else in the conference.
I do too.
And I think it's going to be a dogfight. I think the Big Ten is Ohio State. Maybe Wisconsin is good. Maybe Michigan can get things turned around. I'm willing to give them a break on that game against Army. ACC, I think it's basically Clemson or nothing.
Oh, that's all it is. I mean, it's over. They're going to the playoffs.
And the Big 12, I think, comes down between Oklahoma and Texas. From what I've seen, that's the season.
Yeah, and I mean, I think Texas has a better defense than Oklahoma. I mean, I don't think
Yeah.
Texas defense is that great.
Yeah.
You know, but I think Texas's defense is a little bit better than Oklahoma. So I hope that's a good game. I mean that.
Yeah, we'll see. That's in a couple of weeks, and we'll find out about Oklahoma and UCLA this week. A lot of good games coming up this week. Well, not great games. There's some games. Week 4 is going to be a lot of big games. I wish they could have separated these into 2 weeks, put some this week, some next week, so you could watch them all. But they did what they did, and we'll just go from there.
Yeah.
But that's week 2 review and preview for week 3, JB.
Yeah.
It's moving right along. 2 weeks in the books. I look forward to meeting here next week talking about week 3
about
games.
all the exciting games next week.
Yeah, and then the week after, there's definitely week 4 is going to be a lot of exciting
Yeah,
games.
it will. It'll be better. Week 4 will be better.
Yeah. We'd like to give a special thanks to our producers, Kimberly Madison and Perry Madison, for producing our show. Without them, this wouldn't be possible. We thank you guys for listening to CFBBroadcast.com. We're coming to you from She Shed Radio Studios, and we thank you guys much for listening to us.
See you next week.
And we will see you next week.